Communication plays a vital role in everyday life. It allows you to express what you're feeling, form relationships with people, and share ideas.
The back hurt. Okay. Tell her I'll give her a painkiller.
She's allergic to Dilaudid.
Good to know.
Like seen in the Switched at Birth episode, if someone who is deaf is in an accident and being transported to the hospital, it is important for staff to be able to communicate and ask proper questions such as allergies in order to provide the proper treatment. The problem is, even if there is an interpreter, there are often a lack of signs to describe how the patient is feeling. An estimated 1 in every 1,000 babies is born deaf, and approximately 4,000 cases of sudden deafness occur each year. Before we can bridge this gap between the deaf and the hearing, we must first look at different ways the deaf can communicate. The most common form of communication for the deaf is sign language. Taking a sign language class this semester has allowed me to understand what the language consists of. Most people, when thinking about sign language, think it is just replacing a word with a hand gesture. While this is not the case, sign language, like any other language, has its own grammar rules and sentence structure. ASL sentence structure is similar to talking like Yoda. For example, in English, you would say, "I went to the library yesterday," whereas in sign language, you would say, "Yesterday, library, I go." While this may not seem like a major problem, for those who are born deaf or go deaf at a young age, this difference in sentence structure may create problems understanding and reading English. This misunderstanding of English, in result, could cause a farther gap in communication between the deaf and the hearing. One of the biggest problems with sign language is the lack of clarity. For example, with sign language having signs that are the exact same, interpreters or people using sign language have to use context clues in order to infer which sign it is. For instance, the letter F and the number 9 are the exact same. How can we form better communication? Two common options are lip reading and audio-verbal therapy. While incorporating lip reading may be effective to those who are hearing, it is mostly a guessing game. According to Blaine Goss, a professor of psychology and human communication, only about 30% of the sound of English are visible from a person's lips. With context clues, the deaf person is often able to make educated guesses. But it is also said that lip readers also don't understand more than 1/3 of the words spoken, even when in an optimal environment. This next video will prove just how hard this task really is.
Oh no.
Okay. A snake guards my lunch.
A snake bites
My lunch.
barking dogs.
A solution to better understanding lip reading is to implement the use of cued speech. Cued language includes 8 hand shapes and 4 placements. These shapes and positions allow for those who are deaf or hard of hearing to understand the sound that is being made, since the majority of words are not visible from a person's face. The use of cued speech allows for a better understanding of English, which in return could allow for a better understanding of reading and writing it. The other common option to form better communication between the deaf and the hearing is auditory verbal therapy. According to Auditory Verbal Therapy, UK, this approach stimulates auditory brain development and enables deaf children with hearing aids or cochlear implants to make sense of the sound relayed by their devices. The problem with the solutions of lip reading and auditory verbal therapy is deaf culture. What I have learned from studying deaf culture in my ASL class is there are 2 classifications of deaf culture. The first classification is capital D deaf. These people tend to be proud of who they are and feel like they have a sense of community from being deaf. They do not look at being deaf as a disability and consider themselves to be normal. The second classification is lowercase d deaf. These people tend to classify as hearing impaired and not deaf. They tend to hang around the hearing community and look at being deaf as a disability. For those who classify as capital D deaf, they are proud of being deaf and do not want to have to change just to communicate with the hearing. While those who are lowercase d deaf would be more likely to use lip reading and auditory verbal therapy, the push to close this communication gap needs to come from the hearing. The best solution to decreasing this gap between the deaf and the hearing would be for hearing people to start taking ASL classes or even looking up basic signs online. If one does not wish to take a sign language class, the simplest thing to do to allow better understanding for the deaf is to face the person you are talking to, speak clearly, do not mumble, don't yell, do not overemphasize words, and be patient and relaxed. I also feel it should be mandatory for first responders to learn basic ASL signs such as allergies, hurt, and how are you feeling.